afternoon. My name is Stuart Reenoff. I'm the leasing agent with Cushman & Wakefield for 300 West Pratt Street. And I'm very excited to introduce Brad Hennessie, the co-founder and CEO of NextStep Robotics, and Deb Hemingway, the CEO of the Maryland Development Center. We're thrilled to have Maryland Development Center and NextStep Robotics as occupants at 300 West Pratt Street, and we look forward to talking with you further about that.
Hi, I'm Deborah Hemingway. I'm the CEO of the Maryland Development Center, and here today I have Brad Hennessie, CEO of one of our portfolio companies, NextStep Robotics.
Deborah, thanks for having me today. I'm a really happy portfolio company of MDC, and I'm happy to do this interview.
Excellent. Well, we're very happy to have you here and look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you.
So, Brad, you are now the CEO of NextStep Robotics. And prior to becoming CEO, your career had a number of wonderful twists and turns, including a stint as a military paratrooper. Can you tell us a little more about that and about your career prior to joining NextStep Robotics?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a very bit of a meandering career to get to where I am. Like you said, it started off immediately after high school. I did join the Maryland Army National Guard, where I was a parachute rigger. So it was my job to actually pack the parachutes for the paratroopers and be a support personnel in that sense. It was interesting, to say the least, but it definitely taught me a sense of responsibility very early on. People's lives were literally in your hands with packing your parachutes. And then it also taught me a sense of risk, and it gave me that kind of ability to really utilize risk to move forward. One of the more interesting things that I always like to say about that part of my career is we're the one military job that our final exam is pass-fail. So we have to actually pack our own parachute and jump it. That's how we pass our exam, our final, to become a parachute rigger for that. Going on from there, I was at Towson University. I wanted to be a physical therapist. While I was a senior at Towson, I got an opportunity to actually be an intern with the Maryland Exercise Robotics Center of Excellence, which my co-founder now was the founding director of. And that's when I learned a little bit more about research and the research behind why physical therapists do what they do. I realized that it had a little bit better of an opportunity to have a larger impact than being a physical therapist with a one-on-one kind of role. And naively thought that, we would do research, it would get pumped out into the field, and we could change and improve physical therapy for stroke patients is what we were focusing on. While we were doing that, we were primarily looking at the effects of exercise in stroke recovery, and mainly in gait and mobility recovery. So we were walking stroke participants on the treadmill, but we realized very quickly that there was a real biomechanical limitation in their ability to exercise like you or I would. So when you exercise, it takes about 2 weeks to get acclimated, and then you want to increase the intensity to get the cardiovascular response that you want to go for. We couldn't continuously increase their intensity by adding hill or speed to the treadmill because of the biomechanical limitation of foot drop. So foot drop's the inability to raise your toe when you're walking to hit that nice, safe heel-first foot landing and a smooth rocker motion. So we couldn't exercise them. We identified this as the limiting factor of it. And at the same time, about the same time that I joined the group, they reached out to a group of investigators at MIT who were working on a unique rehabilitation robotic for an upper extremity device that was having pretty profound changes from a neuroplasticity standpoint for stroke patients. So we brought down Dr. Anendo Roy, who's now one of my other co-founders and CTO of NextStep Robotics, who then kind of took it on to develop this unique control system for lower extremity and for walking. So we did that. We had a couple of aha moments along the way. We realized, okay, we're reversing foot drop in individuals who are years after stroke. Previously, the current thought is that 3 to 6 months after stroke, functionally, that's as good as a person's going to get. While all this was going on, I decided I did want to continue school. So I got my master's in healthcare administration, took my first business degree, business class, got bit by the business bug. So I then followed that up quickly with my MBA. That's when I had the realization of, okay, research is very slow to trickle into the clinical world. And it was a little bit frustrating. And I realized one potential avenue to get things out there faster was through industry. And then we met with the Offices of Technology Transfer at the University of Maryland, where the research was going on. And that's when I first got introduced to the local ecosystem and realized that there was a significant amount of support within the ecosystem around the University of Maryland and around the state and the city of Baltimore as a whole to help support the commercialization and technology transfer activities that I was interested in doing. So then it was just convincing myself that it was a good idea, and then convincing my wife that it was a good idea to really move forward and see if I could raise a bit of money and try to get this thing into the hands of clinicians.
Yeah, excellent. That is quite a career trajectory, I think. Also, can you tell us a little bit more about the launch of NextStep Robotics and about the roles of Drs. Macko and Forrester?
Sure. So Drs. Macko and Forrester, they were my bosses, my supervisors, when I was a lead clinical research specialist at the University of Maryland. Dr. Macko is a clinical neurologist, and his real specialty is in stroke rehabilitation. Dr. Forrester is a PhD in gait in biomechanics and gait, and he's the one that developed a lot of the gait modeling that we used to put into the device itself. And we used his laboratory that was inside the Baltimore VA is where all the clinical testing happened with that. They were very integral in my career, as even from an intern, they always listened to anything that I had to say. They didn't believe in, stupid questions. At least they didn't show it. But they always took input from no matter who you were in the organization, and they would adjust how things worked, and sometimes they would adjust the direction of the science based on input from any of the exercise physiology staff and things like that. So yeah, they were really important. And then it was our idea with the two of them, as well as Dr. Ananda Roy, to really launch NextStep Robotics as a company, as our goal to try to commercialize the ankle robot that we're now calling AMBLE.
Excellent. No, that's wonderful to hear about the strong mentorship and incorporating feedback from a lot of different stakeholders. Can you tell us a little bit more about the milestones that you've achieved so far?
Yeah. So I set the initial milestone that I targeted to make me feel comfortable with quitting my cushy state position was just having a license agreement, right? So that was the first one. Once I realized that we could actually get a license agreement, the university would give it to me heading up a company. That's when I raised co-founder funding, as well as achieved our first funding for the commercialization through the Maryland Innovation Initiative through Tedco. So when we got that, that's when I was first introduced to Gil Blankenship and the Maryland Development Center by OTT, the Office of Technology Transfer, and realized that this was a good place to come and sit and to develop the device. We developed our first device with the engineers here, raised our first money from the Maryland Momentum Fund, and then used that really to just leverage. And that's been the name of the game since then. It's been leverage, leverage, leverage. Whenever we get a grant, Whenever we hit a milestone, device development milestone, we raise money off of that. And that's really kind of been the momentum that we've tried to carry going on. So as far as milestones, we've just finalized the device itself after our first year of our phase 1 NIH cooperative agreement. Prior to that, we had a couple of funding rounds. We raised about $2 million in private investment. We got a phase 1 NIH cooperative agreement, which was $1 million, and we just recently secured phase 2 for a 3-year clinical trial, 120 person, to really test the efficacy and move forward with FDA approval of the device.
Yeah. Excellent. Those are great milestones. You've definitely accomplished a lot.
Thank you.
NextStep Robotics is a portfolio company at the Maryland Development Center.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your relationship with the Maryland Development Center and how you became a portfolio company?
Yeah, so MDC, Maryland Development Center, was really kind of my kickoff point into the ecosystem here. Like I said, I was introduced to Gil Blankenship, the original founder of MDC, by the University of Maryland's OTT office. And we kind of initially had a very good conversation that made us realize that we were a good fit. We had a very engineering-heavy problem. We needed to take a very large, bulky robotic device and turn it into something portable that a person could wear, not just on the treadmill, but around the track and things like that. Gil believed that he had the engineering capabilities to help develop that hardware system, and we could bring in our expertise as in the control point of view, which is where our IP sits, to actually develop that first device. So I came to MDC in April of 2017. I sat next to Gil. There was 2 other engineers at the time. We were both kind of getting started together. And in 4 months' time, those 2 engineers built our first feasibility prototype that was functional. We were able to put it on 10 stroke participants to demonstrate that it was a stable system. We could replicate the lab version of our system for less than $10,000 of being built. Our lab version was $130,000 to build. And we could make it battery powered so that they could wear it. I wore it outside just to demonstrate that. Then we took that prototype device and we went to the Maryland Momentum Fund it was my first pitch ever. And we walked away from that with our first $250,000 funding commitment.
And can you tell us a little bit more about Footdrop and how you help your patients?
Sure. So Footdrop is the inability to raise your toe when walking. Right now, the way it's treated is patients are given a rigid brace that goes down over the back of the foot and under the foot in the heel, and it locks them in at a 90-degree angle. It serves a purpose. It reduces their fall risk. It allows them to get into the community a little bit, but it doesn't help them get better. And it can actually promote what's called learned disuse, and can actually cause it to get a little bit worse. And what we saw is I was doing all the adverse events for our research studies going on, and more often than not, I was filing an adverse event for someone who fell either at night or while they were at home when they had taken their brace off. And that really kind of highlighted the problem to me. Okay, there's this, when they take this brace off, there's nothing there to support them, and they become a very high fall risk. So we've had some people get hurt from things like that. So we developed the control system that allows patients to do everything they can, and we provide a certain level of assist to them. That level of assist can back away automatically from step to step, not just from patient to patient. It auto-adjusts, and it allows actually to have a bit of motor neural recovery, and improves their gait, not just in the ankle, but up the rest of the kinematic chain. And we see knee and hip improvements as well.
And you said that your first pitch was to the Momentum Fund.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little more about that pitch? How did you prepare and how did it go?
Sure. So I definitely felt like I was a deer in headlights at that pitch. It was like I said, my first pitch ever. I developed a slide deck. I participated in what was called I-Corp, which was at the time I presented Tedco ran an I-Corps group. So I did that through that group, and we helped started developing slides. I worked with Gil and MDC to further refine my slides, as well as to make sure that we had a good functioning device. We then, Gil, I think jokingly told me I should wear the device to the pitch, and I took him seriously, so I did. And I walked into the room and I wore the device and I demonstrated how it worked. I showed that, in 4 months' time we had this thing. I was controlling it with my phone, and we showed that this was real and it was something that we could turn around and get into clinics and to help people and translate the technology, which to me is the purpose of research.
Great, and you also mentioned Tedco. Can you tell us a little bit more about the role that Tedco played?
Yeah, so Tedco played a huge role early on for me. Like I said, they were the first money in through the Maryland Innovation Initiative. They funded $115,000, went through, it was actually a university grant, and we used that money to help subcontract with MDC to build the device itself. And that kind of initial money gave us the ability to raise more money. We got initial private investment from locally here with that, and it really helped tease out the business model itself. There's the way it's set up is you work with these people called site miners. We had two really strong site miners, Elizabeth Good and Alistair McKay, and they really, the first commercialization plan that we sent to them, it came back all red pretty much, but that was good. It was a good wake-up call. It made us really think about, who's going to pay for this, why are they going to pay for it, and things like that. So we were able to get that first MII funds. We used Tedco for the I-Corps program that they went through. And then we got the follow-on investment from them as the MII Phase 2-3, which comes directly into the company. And in addition to that, we also used a program that they had going on that actually allowed us to meet with FDA consultants and to actually set up our first Q-Sub meeting with the FDA. So Tedco it seems like they always have programs starting and stopping with that. And then just overall exposure that Tedco has given us to the entrepreneurship and community in general has been great.
And can you provide a snapshot of where NextStep Robotics is today?
Sure. So we are finalizing device development now, getting ready to do our final kind of quality management, verification, validation testing, everything like that. Launching our clinical trial. We will be listing the device as a Class 2 exempt exercise device later this year, hopefully in the next 3 months. And we're going to start placing units. Initially locally, we've got an agreement with the University of Maryland Rehab and Orthopedics Institute. That's where we'll do our clinical trial. We plan on placing more than what's needed number of units there so that their therapists can start using it with patients outside of the clinical trial as well. And that's where we're at now. We're trying to get devices out there locally as well as across the country, looking for really kind of key opinion leader places to put it.
And can you tell us a little bit more about your history of capital raising and any future plans you may have?
Yeah, so we had an interesting capital raise trajectory. So we actually met our larger investors 2 years before we started NextStep Robotics. One of my co-founders, this is kind of the huge benefit of having a key opinion leader in Dr. Macko, is he was a visiting professor at UBC, giving a talk there in Vancouver, Canada. And in the audience happened to be someone who had ties to a family investment office there. And it turned out that someone at that office had Footdrop himself. So we flew them down, we put them on the device. He was 17 years post-stroke and he had no ankle movement. So after just training with our device for 1 week, we gave him his first volitional ankle movement. And they were ready to start a company up and get going. We decided to slow down a little bit, kind of regroup before we did that. It took about 2 years of regrouping actually to formulate really the best ideal kind of initial business model to push things forward. When we did that, that's when we went ahead and started NextStep. I left the university to become the founding CEO. And then we raised nearly $1 million that first year. That included the Maryland Momentum Fund, our investors from Vancouver, as well as Tedco. And then from that point on, we've had a couple of smaller rounds since then, $600,000, $500,000. The AMBLE Foundation has invested in us twice now. Maryland Momentum Fund has been follow-on investment, as well as our group in Vancouver. My favorite, though, has been the non-dilutive funding from NINDS, NIH. That was kind of the real big catalyst to get us where we are today, to really kind of de-risk. About 85% of our operational costs are covered by that grant for 4 years. So it makes investors a little more comfortable to come in. The other thing that we've utilized very heavily, we've gotten it 3 times now for 3 different investors, is the biotech tax credit. It's a huge program in Maryland. It's 50% of an investor up to a $500,000 investment goes right back to the investor. So we've maximized that for one investor, and we've gotten money back for our other investors, which immediate return for them makes them more likely to kick in when you need to raise a bridge round or something like that.
So what are the next steps for NextStep Robotics?
So we're pushing ahead. We're expanding right now. We're hiring a few people. We're establishing a gait lab locally. Hopefully that'll be to do the outcomes testing for our clinical trial, but we also want to make the gait lab available to other researchers in the area, VA, University of Maryland, and Hopkins. Because that is one of our areas of expertise too, is gait analysis and things like that. We've got a really good biomechanist on our team, in addition to Dr. Forrester. So yeah, doing the clinical trial, listing the device with the FDA this year, and placing units and starting sales. That's the real final test, right? So that's what we're excited to do now.
Excellent. All right. Well, I hope that you pass that with flying colors as well. All right. Thank you for interviewing.
Thank you.